Well, hello, everybody. Wait. My intro music. All right, it would not be Tuesday Draftbit office hours without a little music provided by our friend Joanne from the Play It app. Welcome to the last day of November 2021. We are here with Rahul and Brian, as we normally are, to talk Draftbit and answer questions. We already have a lively group of people live. This may be like close to the most concurrent number of people that we've had at the beginning of office hours chat. So excited to have so many people join in today, and hopefully we have a productive chat together. We've got just a couple of quick reminders. If you do have a question you'd like for us to answer live, you have the best thing to do is put it in the question and answers section versus in the chat. It kind of helps us kind of prioritize these, keep them in a queue, and try to make sure we hit on everything that you guys have that you want us to cover today. Otherwise, please do use the chat for other things to say nice stuff to us, which many of you are already doing. All right, well, as we've typically done in the past, we're going to try to answer as many of your questions live through the Q&A. But if we run out of those, we do have a few other things that we've planned to talk through that come from questions that folks have asked in the community in the last I guess since we had our Thanksgiving break, so it's been a couple of weeks since we did the last one of these. So we've had a bit of a queue of things that we can cover. So. All that said, as preamble, let's dive into some of the questions and comments that we already have in the mix. So the first one, I'm just going to go in order here, is from Julian. And Julian doesn't have a question, more just a request for Santa, which is essentially all he wants for Christmas is a Google Fonts integration. And so appreciate that. And I wish that Santa could deliver everybody's Draftbit wishes, before the end of the year. But I will say that Google Fonts is something that we have in our queue. It is something we have spent some time trying to determine how we would get working inside of Draftbit and made a little bit of progress there. So I can't give a firm answer on whether or not we'll be able to have that available by Christmas. But I can say it is something that is relatively high on our priority list. At least in terms of we've actually taken steps to try to implement it. So hopefully it'll become clear in our product roadmap when we can commit to doing that in the near future, and then we'll share that with everybody once we've done so. So thanks for that. It always helps for our users to kind of highlight things that they could really use in the product. So appreciate that comment, Julian. All right, so next one on the list is from Jay, who is in the crowd. And he says he could use help with a post that he put up in the community yesterday around parsing. Oh, yes, he's commenting, I pulled data from an API successfully, but failed to display it in the interface. And so I'll just, for purposes of context, I'll just drop the full post that he put in the community in the chat so people can follow along a little bit. And his kind of beyond just the help with the specific thing in the community also has a parenthetical here of, in general, it's unclear how to debug when things don't work, especially when following a tutorial pretty closely. And my guess is, part of that observation is it's particularly hard to debug when you're using custom code, in particular in Draftbit, and when things in custom code may be breaking the experience in Draftbit, and you're unclear whether it's code that you've written or whether it's something inside of Draftbit, that could be experiencing a bug. So on this one, Rahul, I know that you took a look at this one yesterday, dropped a comment, so maybe I'll let you take the response to Jay's question.
Certainly. Thank you, Tim. And hi, everyone. So, Jay, I did look at your post there, and it looks like that you are pulling a response from an API request. And according to your post, it looks like that you are getting back user posts, which is an array of a number of posts that the users have, right? So the fetch component is doing its job. It is fetching that data for you. In order to show that data on the screen, what we need to do is we need to use a list component. So that way you will have access to every single element in the array. So for instance, if a user has 10 posts, then what you can do is use a list element, and then you can map those properties to the text component or wherever you want to show those things on your screen. So the reason why, okay, you're saying you're doing exactly that. So I think I can take a closer look at your app as well. But the error that the red screen describes is that you're not using a property type. You're actually using the entire array. So that's why it says there that just to confirm, I'm just gonna look at the red screen again. Right. So as it says that what you're trying to display on the screen contains these list of keys, which is a featured image, a link, and a title created by. So this, from what I look at it, looks like this is the entire object rather than a single element. So what's happening here is rather than mapping, for instance, title, you're mapping the entire object to that component. So the best way to go around this would be rather than using the object, it would say something like dot title or object dot title. That's what would give you access to displaying the title on the screen rather than just uh, the parent object, which right now what it appears from the red screen that is being displayed over the screen. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. Okay, when that the error is gone, but it's still not displaying anything. Okay. Um, so I think I would need to look at your app just to, see what is actually happening. Sometimes what happens, yeah, okay, that sounds good. Yeah. So after the stream, I'll take a look at your app and see what's the reason why you're not able to see those things.
Awesome. Thanks, Rahul. And I think in general, it can be hard to debug some of these things, as you observed, Jay. We are working on a couple of small things that we think will help with that. In fact, we had a small demo from one of our engineers on ways for us to make it a little bit easier to identify things that are going wrong in custom code. So we know that is something that folks run into often. So just wanted to make a comment that we're aware and do want to make that easier, because it also makes, I think, our lives easier in determining what's happening when you make observations like this as well. So internally it's valuable, and externally it's obviously super valuable to you guys. Cool. Thank you, Brian, for nudging Alex's question into the Q&A. Very helpful. And welcome, Alex. Excited to get to your question. But I'm going to continue to go, or questions. I'm going to continue to go in order, though, and dive into one of the questions from Carl. Carl, welcome. I think you're here. Good to see you. See you virtually. So Carl's first question is anyone else having problems with React Query? It works maybe 10% of the time for me. Issues noted in this community post. So I'm going to just make sure that everyone sees this by dropping it into the chat, the post that Carl is referencing. I don't know that there's anything global that I'm aware of that is an issue with React Query or with the new data sync feature that we shipped. But Brian, Rahul, are you guys aware of something that could be impacting a large number of users with this?
So I haven't seen any problem which is being faced by a lot of users. So I have seen this post, Carl, about, I think this is related to the like button. When you try to hit the like button, it doesn't always go to the empty heart, rather than it shows the filled heart. So for this, I would actually have to look at your backend as well, of how you're actually handling the situation. Um, Otherwise, um, as you said, it looks like, from what I gather from your post, it looks like you're doing everything correct, but it might be something in the back end which is not being handled properly on the front end. Otherwise, I haven't noticed any live changes that are not working with React Query.
Yeah, oh, backend is Xano. When the unlike is clicked, the backend is updated pretty much immediately.
Clearly. Okay.
And Alex, just to make sure I understand your comment, when you say you get these errors quite often, are you referring to the errors that Carl has referenced in his post? Just want to make sure that that's what your comment is connected to. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, React Child 31 and others. Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think
Carl, one of the things that you may be doing, and I'm just reading through some of the comments on the post, but when you set up a React query endpoint, you choose the object type that you are listing. Inside of that, it seems like you are posting and then deleting of a different object type, right? So it occurs to me that this is we're getting into advanced world here, but I think it could be that you need to have, and maybe you do have this, but you need to have the right relationship set up between the two data types, right? So if you have a list of items and then you're adding a like or a like to it, or deleting a like from it, there needs to be relationships such that the data of the items gets refreshed. Because I suspect what you're seeing is you're able to create the like because you're just creating a post endpoint, and that will work. But I suspect the list itself is not being updated correctly in Draftbit, because the relationship between the item and the like is probably not established. So when you go to delete it, it doesn't know what you're trying to delete. There isn't a like item there, right? The object for the query is like, but is the object for the list of items that your master page is that likes? Like, are you on a list of likes, a list of favorites? Proofs. Yeah, so do you have a relationship in your database, in your back end, between proofs and likes? Such that when you pull a specific proof, that you also then inside of that pull its corresponding likes? Does that make sense? Okay. So you have kind of a sub fetch where it's like, for this item in my list, get the likes for this particular proof. And do you have that represented in Draftbit as well?
By the way, it could be valuable, Carl, to have you jump up on
Sure.
the call with us and talk this out live versus us asking you questions in chat if you're down for that. Okay, cool. I'll invite you up.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey,
Hello.
hey guys.
Hey, Carl.
So Carl, what I was saying is inside you're gonna need to I think we may have just stumbled on the meat of the matter, which is I think inside of Draftbit, you have a fetch component set up to retrieve the list of proofs, I suspect.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But inside of that, you're gonna need to do another fetch to get the like for that given proof. So you have a list of proofs, you have a fetch, and then a list of proofs, right?
Yep.
Inside of that list, you have a list item. All the things you put inside the list is a single list item that gets repeated. Inside that list item, you're going to need to fetch the like for a given proof. Does that make sense? So you'll need to have another fetch component inside that then is going to an endpoint that is looking for a like for that given proof ID.
Okay, so right now it's set up so the proof fetch return in Xano returns the list of all the proofs, and then via Xano add-on, it says, "Is this proof liked?" And then that return.
Right, so that's the database references, which makes sense on the back end, but you still the Draftbit side when it's doing the post to delete the like. It doesn't know which ID to delete because it doesn't have that ID of the like. It has only the IDs of the proofs, and so that's where in Draftbit you're going to need to have a fetch request to get the, if there is one, ID.
There is
for the likes. Well, in some there won't be because assumingly you have a fresh list of proofs that never have had a like or not on them. You likely won't have a like ID for empty ones, right? So some will return null and some will return ID 42, and whatever. And so in those cases, then when you do your posting and your deleting, then it should work because then Draftbit will know the ID to do the posting and deleting, I suspect.
Okay. So theoretically, could I, rather than having another fetch, could I have, so right now it's if it's liked, it returns a Boolean, true, false. I could change that so it's true, false, and return, if true, return the like ID. Then there'd be
you could do that.
Right.
You could do that on your back end. You'd have to change it on the back end. The other thing you could do is you could simplify this and you could just literally do what you just said, which is have the like be true, false. And then instead of doing deleting and posting, all you're doing is patching. And you're just updating that list item and you're changing, the only thing you're changing is that true, false. You're only changing like true or like false. Like true or like false for a given. So I don't know how your database is structured or whatever. Usually you wouldn't do that because you would want the like to be user specific, not general purpose. Right. So anyone retrieving now, if the list of proofs is already user specific, then maybe you could do it all in one record. If the list of proofs is not user specific, but likes are, like for example, Instagram, photos are not like when you're browsing a list of photos in Instagram or posts, those are not like I'm looking at the post and then I'm adding my like, Brian's like to it.
That's exactly how it is.
And then Rahul's adding a like and Tim's adding a like and whatever. So in that case, you would usually keep like separate, but you still need to reference it. And in that case, again, the status you would think, if you're thinking in authenticated state, is you would retrieve the like based on my user and this object, right? So I'd be getting any likes that are from Brian's user ID for the post ID of 72 or whatever.
Yeah, and that's the way it's working right now. Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
I mean, I think deleting, I think you can do it in the mode you're doing, but I think you just have to represent the data inside of Draftbit in a way that lets Draftbit know that this is like ID 32 inside of proof ID 41.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think if you do that, I think it'll start to work.
Okay, cool. I'll give that a shot.
But try that out. And if it doesn't work, We can come up with some other ideas for you.
Okay, I'll try to update that post with the results.
Awesome.
Can I also add something here just to simplify things? So basically, your like, when you fetch that like, it should be an array which would have user IDs which users actually like them, right? So what you basically are doing when you do that fetch, and if your user ID is in that list of array, then that's when you would see a red heart rather than, otherwise it should show you a plain heart.
That's a
Does
little
that
bit
make
dependent
sense?
on the backend, Rahul. Like that would be a backend choice to
Right.
retrieve a list of arrays. A list of likes, all the likes from a user, or if you just want to return my user's like. That's a choice you can make on your backend for display
Right.
purposes. In Instagram, just as a user reference, they would do two requests. They would have the little heart button would be my like.
Yep.
But then they would show the count of likes would give you some summary from all the things, and it would show liked by Brian and Bill and Fred and Bob, whatever.
And I have that, but it's only the count, which is fine because I don't need liked by your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah, and these things get complicated, but I think it's funny, we think about Instagram as like a simple app that we want to replicate, but like each little thing in Instagram can be quite complicated. You can have my like, I can have the friends, the likes of the friends that I have in common with this person.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things can get relatively common. But I would just start by trying to get it working, again, representing the data in another fetch inside of Draftbit. And I bet it will start to work at least better than it is now.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
Awesome. Carl, since we have you up here,
good to see you.
Carl's got a couple more questions he tossed in here. So now that you're up here, man, we should just.
Oh yeah, this is great.
So your next one is anyone know how to hack to clear inputs on submission, e.g. post a chat message and clear the input. Without that, chat is basically non-functional. So do you have color commentary you wanna add to that?
Yeah. So basically, I added chat with groups or individual members, and it lets just like normal chat, typing whatever, it's posted. But after you hit post something, the query react isn't updating immediately, so I'm gonna investigate that again. But that's a separate issue. But after you submit it, the input isn't cleared. So it's like, hey, what's going on? Submit, it's posted, but you don't see it right away because of the React query issue. But even if you do, you might not see it right away. And then you hit submit again, it's the same post, submit again, same post. Versus hit submit, create the post, and then have an action that clears the input.
Are you
so we have clear input as a action as kind of on our feature roadmap list. I think it's something we know that we will want to do. I don't know when exactly. So that's something I think. So we are thinking about that at kind of a product level, to be able to clear the input. There's also another thing that's coming, screen related variables that might be helpful in clearing those things. You could probably set the variable to null right afterwards, which would then clear it from the screen. You might, again, it's gonna be a little weird for you to set up a global variable for every input to do that right now, but you could test that out. You could try using an action to set the variable to null and set that field equal to that variable, and then retrieve the data from that field when you submit your request. Instead of kind of going direct from text input to post, you would go, you kind of make this variable as like a middleman that then you can manipulate. I would try that. I don't know if it will actually update the UI and remove the message. It might be something we have to do more to reinitialize the field. So
Otherwise, my only thought was like create a modal or something that pops up like post, message posted, and then when you click a button on that modal, it probably goes, it somehow refreshes the screen.
Yep. Yeah, you can do that. You can navigate to your own screen, which might be a sort of interesting hack. You can do a navigate to the current screen, which would kind of be weird, but probably not ideal for chat to be navigating between screens, because you'll kind of build up a bunch of weird back button behaviors. But
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. There's some various hacks in that. I think that one's going to be best solved when we actually just add the clear field action for better photos.
Okay. And then one of the next questions was related to that, and that's like in a chat example, is there a way to have a scroll view automatically go all the way to the bottom? So if you're seeing in the chats and there's 100 chats, it's you click into that chat and it goes all the way to the bottom rather than the top. I think we lost your audio.
Sorry, I'm muted. I just said that was a good question. I'm looking at the scroll view props.
It seems like, I mean, that use case in particular seems like a pretty common use case, to be honest.
Yeah, I hate adding chat right now. I'm like, oh, I have to do it, but wish I didn't.
Understood. I mean, certainly we have not gotten to the point where working with chat is easy in Draftbit.
Yeah, and it's not just a Draftbit thing either. Like in Xano, it's not that fun. And
fair.
I think the answer to this question is probably, but I don't know explicitly. I think what you're going to have to do is implement a custom scroll view. If you want to get this done right now, I think you have to implement a custom component that's a scroll view. And you can go look at all the props that exist on the scroll view here. And I suspect that there are either some methods that you can use and you can kind of latch into, or there are some props potentially. There's a lot of props here, so I don't know. Like there's a scroll to end method that you could use, right? And you could do that sort of on change or something like that, right? On submit of a message, you could scroll to end or something like that. It's not something we have built into Draftbit.
Okay.
It'd be more of an action to do that. But that's probably how if I was trying to do that, probably what I would try to do. I would look through those props for the scroll view component and see if there's one that's like, ideally there's one that's like, you know, I don't think this is a prop, but it would be like persistent bottom or something like that. Just was always like scrolled to the bottom or something. I don't know if one of those exists, but if there is one there, let us, that'd be the easy way to do it. If there's not, you're going to have to implement a method to kind of constantly scroll to the bottom. Let us know if you find a prop that we can add, because relatively straightforward for us to add some props into scroll views.
Okay. So, yeah, I might save this one for later, but yeah, I'll let you know.
There's also
the other thing you can do.
Just quickly,
the other thing I was gonna say, which isn't as good, you can reverse the order and you can put the you can put that top, which kind of sucks, but
just looking at these props,
it's not it doesn't line up with how we use iMessage and other things, right? Like, so it's it would be a little bit jarring for users to kind of reverse that order, but just a thought.
There's also a snap to end method in here. I'm not really sure what the difference is between snap to and scroll to, but snap sounds like it potentially could be closer to the use case that you're looking for, because it's like snap would be kind of like jump to the end, right, as opposed to scroll to. So you might want to try that too.
Okay, yeah, I'll investigate.
Yeah, I think if you go down a little bit, there's a scroll to end property available as well. So you might want to have a look there. That might be helpful for you.
It's unclear if snap to or scroll to is the thing that most accurately represents the user experience that you want. So you might have to play around with both.
Okay. Yep, I'll do that.
All right. Thanks, Carl. Thanks for moving up here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you later.
Awesome. See ya.
All right. We've got more questions. Next question from our friend Steve Wright. Looking to debug some issues with multiple stack navs not resetting when performing some complex navigations. So I know that this is something that you posted in the community, Steve. I know, Rahul, I think you probably took a look at this at some point. So I maybe defer to you as the first line of defense in answering this. I'm going to post this community post in the chat.
So yeah, thanks, Tim. I did have an opportunity to looking at Steve's app here, And what basically Steve is stating that he has a tab navigator at the bottom. And so if he's performing certain actions in one of the tabs, and he switches to another tab, the screen state does not really change. So it doesn't start from the initial route in the tab navigator. It just leads to the current screen. So basically, what's happening is, so every time he needs to uh, click one of the tab options, uh, the navigation needs to reset. So it basically allows him to see the first screen in the tab navigator and not the last screen. This is something a little bit complex to discuss over a live stream. I think this would be easier done if we can take a look at his app and then do the debugging for this. Although it's not really too complex, so I would suggest Steve, don't worry. Like I will take a look at this app and we would be able to get this sorted out for you. And once we come up with the resolution for this, I will also make a community post so the other users can also take a look and see if they are facing the same issues here.
I will also mention that there was essentially 2 threads kind of on related topics in community. And I'll post this other one here too. I just wanted to acknowledge there is a lot of really thoughtful commentary in this initial post by Diego from Dave Sebek, who I think might be in the audience here today. And I thought there was a lot in there that was potentially worth trying if you're faced with similar issues that Dave posted. So just want to acknowledge that there was some thoughtful support from him in that process as well. Not necessarily as directed, Steve, to your specific issue, but certainly related and might be helpful to other users who are kind of working with a similar navigation structure. So wanted to highlight that. Yeah, big props to Dave. Thanks, Steve. All right, so Rahul is committed to resolving that one offline. So we've got a couple of questions then from Alex. First one, I'll just read this verbatim. I successfully added the Supabase signup endpoint to Draftbit, but I cannot add the login endpoint. Draftbit forces me to set the role, which I believe is the reason for the error I get. If I leave it blank, it doesn't allow me to test the endpoint, and if I select any option, it returns me a bad request 400 error. So this one is a little harder to debug without looking at the app itself. I don't know.
I will say,
yeah, go ahead, Brian.
We don't require you to add role. We only require that you add a role if you also choose an object. So you can kind of operate your REST. Sorry, my small screen, but you can operate your REST request in kind of one of 2 ways: without role and without object, and that's just kind of like just sending requests, right? There's no interpretation of those requests, nothing. So if you remove the object and you remove the role, you can do whatever you want. If you want to use the React query kind of data synchronization features, then you need both of those things. There's no middle state. You can't have an object without a role. That we don't allow, because those are both. You need both of those things to create a React query parameter. So you can certainly do authentication in both states. You probably can't do it in the middle state, and you're right, it won't let you test when you're missing one of the other. If you're struggling with React query related, like if you're struggling with the object types and the roles, then start without React query and get it working just plain, just submitting requests with no object and no role, and see how that works for you. If you're getting, and you should be able to test, assuming you have things filled out correctly. If you're getting an error, that's different than not being able to test. If you have removed both those fields and you're still not able to test, then that could be a bug that we need to go investigate. So in that case, like I would take a screenshot or post us, open the intercom window and post to us, and we can take a look. Okay, what's the error, Alex? Okay, so that means that the request worked just fine on Draftbit side because it's getting something back from your server. Your server is saying that's not a valid request. So there's something in the structure of the request to the server. Sometimes that's authentication related. You know, you might need to send along headers, or you might need to send along valid test data for tokens or whatever. But yeah, I think like if you're certain that the thing is set up correctly in your backend, and if you're sure that it's set up correctly in the front end, then create a post or open a request in Intercom, and we'll take a look. We can investigate. But it just, not to pass the buck, but like it does feel like there's something wrong in either how the request is set up or something on the back end. Because all we do is ping the server, and it's saying server 400. So if it was a problem with Draftbit, we would get something, usually, not always, but usually we wouldn't get anything back. You know, you wouldn't get a status 400. That's the API that's saying that's the back end saying that there's a bad request, not Draftbit. But we can take a look for sure. I'm trying to be helpful.
Oh, Aman, always coming through with some quality suggestions. So he's also directing you, Alex, to our documentation where we kind of talk through how to get auth for Supabase set up. So it's possible you've already reviewed that, but if you haven't, that is definitely a great resource. Okay, he's acknowledging that he followed the guide. So,
Okay. Awesome.
But cool.
And then something's changed on Supabase's side, and like could be something that our guide is. You know, I mean, I don't know. We'll take a look. We'll try to figure it out. Well, help you.
Alex had another question, and it is it possible to set up push notifications in such a way that the user set when the user wants to be reminded of something? So for the example he uses is the user could set up a push notification to remind the user to write a report. Like, for example, like every day at 10 a.m. remind me to write this report, or like randomly remind me to write this report. Sort of behavior.
Yeah, I can just address this high level. Alex, you can set. There's kind of two ways to think about push notifications. So you need two things to send a push notification. You need the permission to send the push notification. So you need the push notification token, and then everything else is in your backend. So you can have a screen or a built-in setting that just says, you can have a user create, and you might have to create a new database record for this called like reminders or something like that, where you would say, send to this user a reminder at X and Y date, send them this message, right? You could have that statically, you could have a user created, whatever you want. But then in your backend, you will then send the push notification using the token that you get from the front end and whatever you want to send message-wise, and you send that to the push notification server, and it will deliver the push notification. So there's actually, outside of getting the token, which you'd need to do in Draftbit, there's not much you would actually probably do in Draftbit. You would typically drive that from the server side. You would send those notifications from the server based on running, typically like old school. I'm going to use some old school words that probably don't make sense. You would run like a cron job to go look for notifications that need to be sent. So you'd have a running process on your server that would every hour, every minute, every whatever go look for notifications to be sent. So hopefully, does that give you a head start on where to go?
Oh, good. We lost Brian. We got Brian back, and Alex acknowledges that is a good head start for him. Can you recommend any SaaS tool that can help with managing push?
Well, there are some SaaS tools for push notifications. Yeah, Jay mentioned Airship one. But you actually, Expo, which all of Draftbit services sort of run on top of Expo framework. Expo has a push notification service. So in general, you should use the Expo push notification service because it's a lot easier and very straightforward. And you get the token. I think we have some guide on how to get the token using custom code somewhere. And you can get the code, and then all you're gonna have to do you're not gonna actually, in Supabase or in Firebase, you're just gonna have to create the system that triggers the server. It doesn't actually send the push notification itself, literally, but you're gonna have to create the system that could do that. You could also probably do it with Zapier, frankly, if you wanted to get super aggressive. Airship would be another one. And there's a ton of companies that let you do push notifications like email marketing. It's kind of weird to think about it that way, but like, you can sign up for customer.io, and customer.io will let you trigger push notifications on certain schedules with certain attributes and do some things like that. So there's lots of ways to do it.
Awesome. Good tips. Thank you, Alex, for the great questions. Thanks, Brian, for great answers. I'm going to jump to this question from Jay. We've got 2 more in the queue. Jay's question is, any idea how to remember the place in the feed of posts the user was viewing and bring them to the same place the next time they come back to the app? Unlike Instagram, that brings you back to the top every time. Seems somewhat related to Carl's question around kind of manipulating where in scroll view a user gets anchored to. I'm not necessarily sure that the solution set to Jay's question is the same as Carl's, but that's what I was immediately struck by. I don't know, Brian or Rahul, if you guys know of other ways of doing it.
It's going to be more involved than just keeping things scrolled to the bottom.
For sure.
Basically, what you're going to have to do, almost certainly, you're going to have to be writing custom code to do this.
Yes.
What you're going to have to do is when you navigate, when you like tap on something and you navigate somewhere, before you navigate, you're going to have to record the position of where you're at in the scroll list. Yeah. So I think in scroll view language, that's called the offset, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
Yeah. No, that's
but
true.
I think you're gonna have to record the offset, and then when you come back, you're gonna have to scroll to the offset. What's interesting about this is that you may, if you're using React Query, you may not need to do this because the screen may not get unmounted when you go to a navigate page if you come back. If you use the back action, you may go back to right where you are at the screen state. I don't know if that's not working. If you're using back and you're still coming back to the top, then I'm wrong. But I feel like in some states, when you go back, it should bring you back to right where you were. Because that screen, in React Native, that screen's not really unmounted. It's just kind of like hidden. And then we revealed it again. And so it probably hasn't changed. But if you're closing the app and reopening it, oof. You're definitely gonna have to store the scroll offset, and that's gonna get complicated. Here's why. I suspect that list of things you're scrolling is likely to change, right? Like if it's a social media app, the list of items in that list is also going to change. So you're going to get more advanced in the custom code, right? You're going to have to calculate an offset based on the number of items in the array. You're going to have to kind of like guess the height of the offset based on the average height of an item, and like, complicated. It's hard. I don't know. That's a hard engineering challenge, like, in and of itself. It's doable. It's probably. It's funny we bump into the issues like this, and it's like these are the things where I'm not an engineer by training. Those are the things you're like, yeah, that sounds really easy, and then you like look into it and you're like, oh my god, like it's like, you know, this is like the divide between our mental models of engineers and mental models of non-engineers in the world. Like something sounds really easy, no, really fucking hard, strangely.
I mean, I think what you observed, Brian, encapsulates what it's like building Draftbit every day. And I hope that is something that, you know, like, and that I don't say that to, you know, to try to create sympathy or, for us for the challenge of building this product. But I do think there are a lot of things that externally seem like they should be straightforward to implement, and when you get into them, they're not. And that probably represents like every engineering and product, challenge that we take on as a company. So hopefully, the more that we build this, the more that we keep, advancing the ball, the more that people can see the kind of beauty of the abstractions, that we create in the product, because they're all they're all like this, right? The goal of any no-code platform: abstract all the things. Exactly. We are in like the second inning of abstracting all the things. So bear with us. Another question from Steve. He's got another issue with his login not working on iOS, but working perfectly on web and Android. And he acknowledges maybe another one to kind of take offline and go deeper into his app specifically to figure it out. I know, Steve, you did post this one in the community already, because I did pick up on that. Rahul, again, I know that you looked into this before and kind of were mildly stumped by it thus far. So maybe you have something to add to this one.
No, again, I think that's just a one-off thing that's happening in Steve's app, because I tested the same backend service in my app and everything was working fine. So it looks like it might be something that again, I would have to take offline with him and do like a one-on-one session and see if we can sort that out. But this is something which is not, a lot of users are using the same backend. It's from the Xano backend. So this is something new to us as well. And I would require a little bit more digging into it and see what's happening. Seems pretty trivial though. Like, since the login is functioning on both the other requests, the only problem he's having is when he's using the iOS simulator, is when the server responds with a message that the field name is not the same as the backend is expecting. But the logic there is like, why does the backend accept the field names when they are sent through the web view and Android, right? So that's the thing that's stumping me a little bit.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird.
Rahul, we should take a deeper look at that one, because that's
sure
unexpected.
Yeah, that is definitely odd, especially when it seems like could be some
weird like special characters or something nonsensical. Like there's something else. I feel like there's something else that's like going on there that would explain it. Like something's not being correctly parsed or sent or stored or whatever. Or there's some, I don't know. We should investigate.
I mean, it's something that Apple's doing uniquely, which is, potentially, which is strange.
And which happens
it's a
lot.
login button that submits a post request?
Yes, it's just a login button that submits a post request. The sign up button works fine with the same field names in iOS, but it's only the login button that's creating the issue. It would have been way simpler to solve if none of them were working, but just because the other two are working.
Let's go look at the code and let's see what's going on, and we can experiment with that and see if there's something on. Because I don't know if Steve if it doesn't have an iOS testing device, but we certainly do, so we can investigate.
Yeah, I just posted a link to his posting community just for posterity's sake for what he shared a couple of days ago. But Steve, we'll definitely spend some time on this one because that's some strange behavior. Okay, so last set of questions that we have in the queue are back from Carl. So he said a couple of questions if we get through these before time ends. Well, we have 10 minutes left, so we're getting to them. Question one is, any chance you plan on adding charts and graphs as a component? There's a good tutorial in the community, which yes, there is a good. I'll track that one down and share it in the chat really fast. But native and Draftbit would be nice. We agree for sure. I think that I will give an answer, and then Brian, Rahul, feel free to chime in. I think one is there are a lot. Charts and graphs is not like encompasses quite a bit. If you just go look at, like the libraries that are available out there for charts and graphs, there are tons. And there's lots of different, functionality that is potentially goes behind, like what a chart or a graph is. Like, so there's a difference between, like show a bar chart, versus, something that could be a lot more complex in terms of the animations around that or like whatever. And so I think I wouldn't just lump it all together and say that like, they're kind of charts, graphs. So a little bit is specific to like what you're looking for. The second is like, just do an animated semicircular progress bars. Everyone will love it. I think that's a totally fair ask. I think we absolutely do want to make these things native in Draft. So the second part of my answer is we absolutely do want that. I think it's all a matter of, the demand, for that sort of feature relative to other things, that we could build natively into Draftbit, kind of going back to the observation about abstracting all the things earlier. There is a lot. For us to focus on, but this one's definitely come up, more than once. And so I can't answer specifically when, but it is something that we will do. But it may be, frankly, it could be months down the line. So just want to, clarify kind of where it is in our priority list. But I will track down that post right now and drop it in here because I agree that what we have at least tried to do is give people a nudge in the direction of like how to import some libraries and get them working in Draftbit. I don't know, Brian, if you have anything to add to that while I track this down.
No, we're taking a look at victory charts, I think, on the component side. So we'll get there, I think. We have a couple more components that are ahead of that for sure. In the component priority list, charts are like in the middle-ish somewhere.
Yep. And in the middle-ish could be a while, depending.
We did just roll out 2 new components. I don't know if people saw modal and section list or section list. What is it called? Action sheet.
Action sheet.
Yeah. Action sheet and modal. We have 2 of those, and we have more. We have a bunch more coming. Cool ones. So.
Yes, modals are awesome. Agreed. That one was definitely highly requested. So Carl's other question was, I changed my Xano auth token to expire from 1 day to 1 week, but I still have to run the Draftbit endpoint every day to get them working in the Draftbit editor. Not sure why. I don't know on that one.
Can I add something here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to make sure, Carl, like the default auth token that you've saved in your global variable, is it the new one once you changed your Xano auth authentication deadline to a week, or was it the first one that was there initially? Because once you change the new auth token, which is valid for longer as your default auth token, then I think you wouldn't have to make this like every day, because again, that's just a hunch that I have. So to let me know if that's the case, then I would suggest just add a new weekly expiring auth token as your default auth token. I'm not sure what you mean by making auth.
Well, in the data panel, when you set up, do you have a testing value auth token that you're using, or are you like usually it'd be a testing value in the data panel for endpoints where you would put in like an example auth token that you want to use while you're in development mode in Draftbit. I think that's what Rahul is talking about. In that mode, you want to make sure that testing value is one of the weekly ones. If you're not doing that and you're actually going through kind of a login process to get the token, use an example in the testing value of a database endpoint. And is that what you're having to refresh every day?
Yes.
And you put in a new weekly one every day? Interesting. Yeah, I don't know what would be causing that. What happens if you wait a day? Do you get a server error? I don't know for certain, but that sounds to me like a back-end configuration thing, like that the token isn't being actually generated or isn't being respected for, even though it's being generated to last a week. Maybe there's some other check that's checking to see how old that token is and is thinking it's 24 hours. We don't really, the token you put in as the testing value, we don't know anything about it, right? Like we don't store there's no like additional data to store on the token stuff. We just try to run that token. And so if it works, it works. And if it doesn't work, well, that's the server telling us it doesn't work. So there's no additional like knowledge about that. The only thing I would say is that if you weren't using the testing value, but you were like running some sort of auth process or whatever, then my thought process would be like, yeah, you probably have to refresh that in Draftbit. We refresh a lot of our stuff. We don't store things for long periods of time that are in cookies or in local storage in the browser because it makes development much harder to do that, right? So we want things to be kind of up to date. But if you're using a testing value that's literally placed into the data panel, where the endpoints or services, then we don't, we just submit that. So if it's working, it works, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I think you probably have to go. That might be a question to ask in the Xano forums potentially about like, hey, I set up my tokens to last a week and they're only lasting a day. What's going on? And see what people might be able to help you with. So I don't know.
Seems like a fair thing to try. And if you try that and they send you back our way, we will, post about it in community and we'll see what we can do. But we tend to have a pretty cordial relationship with the Xano folks. Brian's putting his dukes up, but it's not the way that it is. Cool. Well, we are at the end of the questions people have asked for today, and we're basically at the end of our time. So thanks for so much engagement in questions from a large set of people today. Like we really did have a great group show up, one of the larger contingents that we've had thus far. And we're really just thankful to everybody, for participating in these office hours. Like I think, since we started doing them, every Tuesday and Thursday, I think the engagement just continues to go up. And that's exactly, why we're doing this, is to create moments where, as our business grows, it's going to be, it's probably, several months ago, it was a little bit easier for us to just like jump on calls and help people out when they're struggling. But, we have so many more users now and so many more opportunities. Like, we're trying to consolidate as much as we can into these hours each week. And you guys have really responded to that. And that's very much appreciated. So a reminder that we have another one of these on Thursday, hosted by Georges, same time, 11 a.m. Central Time. So please come through. George also tries to get like some special guests from our team to show up each time. So you might get, some engineers from our team and really be able to go deep on either some new features or stuff that you're struggling with. So please do show up for that. And we'll be back again on Tuesday to do our scheduled time. So beyond that, everyone have a great day. And I'm going to play us out with a little West Coast rap.